want to do is to start off with is to back up the question that Quinton's just asked. And I'm going back to old technology here. So I'd like a raise of hands, please. When was the last time you ordered a next day delivery? So how many of you ordered a next day delivery within the past, let's say, month? Backs up Quinton's, doesn't it, really? So we know there's a massive growth sector there within our industry. And again, from your views earlier on, that also backs that up. So they don't just benefit the consumer, do they? There are lots of benefits it brings to us as an industry. We know that when we drive at night, we can drive much more fuel efficient. We manage to maintain that green band, less harsh acceleration, less harsh braking, and so on and so forth. That in tail means there's less wear and tear on the vehicle, so again keeps our maintenance costs down. And we also help to plan more effectively because the chances are we're going to arrive on time and in line with the plan that's been made. So there's many financial gains that could be made for the industry and for a particular business. But what about everybody else on the road? It also benefits the majority of us who probably drive the majority of the time during daylight hours. So again, less traffic on the road. The more goods vehicles we've got on the road of the night, it makes it easier for us to get from A to B. Also, we get less wear and tear on our vehicle. We can start to use cruise control more effectively, and we become more fuel efficient. So there are lots of benefits, not only to the industry, but to the general public as well. But we also need to take other things into account when we're planning these type of operations. And I don't know whether we do. Some companies do, some companies don't. Do we look at the operation of driving at the daytime? Oh, well, it's very similar to what occurs at night. It's just in the dark. Well, let's have a look at some of these things, because what we do need to consider is driver well-being. We need to look at the way the driver acts and the way he responds to working regular nighttime operations. Beverly also mentioned, I think other people have as well, they've talked about mental health, haven't they? We've also seen sleep apnea this morning, the way that can affect people. Nighttime vision. Is it any different during the night? We'll have a look at that in a moment. Can that also bring on driver fatigue going forward? There's also lack of lighting, also noise pollution with regards to our operations, and what can that also bring back on the driver? And then we've also got vehicle security. Do we also consider that enough? Now, I used to work for a large drinks logistics operation who, a number of years ago, in all fairness, came to us as a driving team and said that all the supermarkets provide a 24/7 operation, and so should we. And there was a little consultation with the drivers, but not much to start off with. But once we did point out that if we're delivering in some of the city centres that we used to service, after a certain time at night, those vehicles would be unloaded a lot quicker than they would have done at any other time of the day. The on-time in full would have gone to pot because the goods wouldn't have been in the right place at the right time. But that hadn't been taken into consideration. It was purely about servicing the customer. Security and safety was a last resort in the occasion, I'm sad to say. I'm glad to say they also took on the advice and guidance of the driving team and put that into play for that expansion in that area. But these are the kind of things we need to take on board. So, is it riskier driving in the night? Well, think about the last time you drove in the dark. How did you feel when compared to driving in the daytime? I know myself, especially when you get adverse weather conditions, you tend to be a little bit more uptight. You tend to try and focus that little bit more. What effect does that have on you? Well, actually, Rossborough have done some really good studies into this, and their research into driving at night shows that actually 40% of collisions occur in the hours of darkness. Now, we could look at that and think, well, that's great, because that must mean that it's 60% in the day. We're a lot safer at night than we are in the day. Well, you'd be wrong. Because only 15% of vehicle miles are travelled at night time. So that makes that 40% a lot more powerful. It is a lot riskier to drive at night. Now, you may be experienced drivers yourself, but people become a lot more uncomfortable driving in the dark. I've got relatives who've been in this industry for years, who've driven many miles all over Europe. But they've got certain stages in their life for various things, and if they can avoid driving at night, they will do. How do you know some of your driving colleagues aren't the same? Because the chances are they won't admit to it. So let's have a look at the driver's journey. Let's have a look at what they typically undertake and how it can affect them. So with that last slide, did a number of you struggle to read it? Was it as clear as some of the other slides? Have us nod our heads or, or whatever else, thank you. It's a lot more difficult, isn't it? Now when we think about when we drive in the dark, then if we've got adverse weather conditions, we may have come across a situation like that. But we're okay here because we are in an audience, we sat here. There's not a lot changing around us. But when we are in that driver's seat, then we are in a very different situation. Situations are changing at a pace all around us all the time. And we've already said about the increase in overnight traffic. So it's not like it was a few years ago where you may be a solitary driver on a particular road for a amount of time. It's a lot busier than it used to be, and we need to take that on board. We need to understand how that can affect the driver. So let's have a look at how their vision is affected particularly. And let's have a look at some of the negatives that occur with our vision when driving at night. Well, firstly, our ability to see colours is reduced. And think about the colours that we have to see. We have to see reds, ambers, greens. We're talking about traffic lights. We're talking about signals from other vehicles. And we have to be able to respond to those effectively. If we add into that our ability to see into the distance as well, that is greatly reduced. Now, as a trainer and instructor in various roles I've been in, when we're talking about forward planning for drivers, we want them to look, yes, we want them to look at close, we want them to look at medium distance, but we also want them to look on the horizon as well, so that they can react to the changing situation. Well, if their ability to see in the distance is reduced, then we reduce their ability to react to changing situations. The ability to judge speed as well is also reduced. So if something does occur, they've got less time to react to it. Let's think about the change in technology as well with regards to headlights. Now, I've got a car that's got xenon headlights on. There's HID, there's LED lights out there. Fantastic for me as a driver. Lights up the road fantastically. However, when you're on the receiving end of those, one after the other, after the other, after the other, then what effect can that have on you as an individual? But we want a holistic view of this. So there's the negatives. Let's have a look at some of the positives with regards to eyesight at night driving. Well, I'm sorry to say there aren't any. There are no positives with regards to your vision at night. So do we look at our drivers who operate on night shift? Do we look at them any differently to those who operate on day shift? Or are they still fulfilling the same role? When we look at that as well, they may have additional conditions that we're not aware of. Now, one of those, I'd like to point out, is night blindness. Now, this is a condition where people can walk into cinemas, they can walk into theatres, and they may have difficulty negotiating obstacles. But you as operators, how would you know they've got that condition? Now, as a licence holder myself, I have to undertake a medical every 5 years because I am over the age of 45. I know you don't believe that, but it's true. And when I had my medical, I had to look at a screen and read the letters off there. Fairly standard eye test. You may undertake annual eyesight tests with your drivers from a minimum 20-metre distance, reading the number plate. But actually, is that enough with regards to eyesight checks? It seems strange, really, that we can have people work within our businesses who look at visual display units, and yet we expect them to have eyesight checks every 2 years to ensure that it isn't affecting their eyesight. And yet, as drivers themselves working in nighttime operations, we have a minimal test, not something like they would have where it's quite extensive at a full optician. So that may be something you want to consider yourselves when you get back. Is it enough? And only you know that because you know what kind of operations you run within your business. We also want to give the drivers the ability to come and speak to you, because if they have got a condition, then shouldn't they be confident in the knowledge that when they come to you, they're going to get that help, assistance and guidance to be able to either change shift patterns or put that right or work with them instead of being ruled by fear. We want that. Let's just go back to what happened with the Glasgow bin lorry crash. We had a driver there who had a condition, didn't notify his employer. Would any of you want that kind of coverage with regards to your business? No. So if we can identify the way that these issues can affect the driver in nighttime operations, then we can deal with them effectively. So we already know the driver is working a lot harder to be able to take in the information that during the day wouldn't be so bad. Now, anyone who has focused on something for a long time is trying to pick up as much information as possible. It is tiring. It can have a long-term effect on you over a period of time. So we know they're already working a lot harder with that. But the reality is that before we've even had a chance to consider the impact as on fatigue, the driver is already tired, and this is because they are a human being. Now, Brake, the road safety charity, has done some extensive studies again, and they've identified that between the hours of 2 in the morning and 6 in the morning, that they're the peak times for fatigue-related crashes. When we look at the other figure, which is 2 and 4 in the afternoon, then we can see actually for nighttime operations we've got a 100% increase in risk. But do the drivers know that? Are they aware of that? Are we giving them the ability to take on that information and react positively to it, make them aware of the situation? I think the key thing with that is the fact it says naturally. There's nothing we can do about it. It's the way we're built. It's the way our bodies are put together. That is the way we naturally react at those times of the day or night. Now, the Health and Safety Executive have got some advice and guidance on this as well. And the fact they've got that advice and guidance out there, shouldn't that tell us everything we need to know about nighttime operations? The fact we need to look at it differently. Because we do perform best during daytime operations. We are programmed to be awake in the day and asleep in the night. And there's nothing we can do about that because our performance is generally poorer at night. We are not programmed to be nocturnal. Like I say, we aren't made that way. Our body clocks cannot fully adjust to it. Now, I used to work with colleagues on a night shift, and they would finish their shift on a Friday morning at 6 o'clock. They would then go home, stay awake until that night and try and have some kind of normality over the weekend with their family. So they'd been awake since Thursday afternoon, not going to bed till Friday night. They would then have that normality, go on night shift on Sunday night, and then not go to bed until probably the Monday morning when they'd finished their first shift of that week. So they'd been awake for well in excess of 24 hours for 2 periods in that week, just to try and get some normality with their family. So if we look at an average of 7 hours, that's 14 hours sleep they've missed out on. We compound that. What effect does that have on them as individuals? And do we take that into consideration, or at least talk to our drivers to find out what kind of lifestyle they've got to support that? Because it can, over a period of time, have an effect on the way we go about our business. So, they're on this journey. We know they're working a lot harder. They're having to focus. They're having to take a lot of information in. So what do we advise them to do? We actually advise them to open the window and turn the radio on. But how many of you listen to the radio at night? How is it different to the day? Now, I listen to Chris Evans of a morning, so what does he do? In the morning, turn the radio on and you've got vibrant music. Music that's going to get your adrenaline going, that's going to wake you up and get you prepared for the day. That's what it's designed to do. But you put the radio on a night and it has a very different effect. Who knows Whispering Bob Harris? Yes? He likes a bit of jazz like this, doesn't he? Yeah? It's designed to put you to sleep. It's designed to relax you. So we tell him to turn the radio on, but what it's actually doing is having the adverse effect. Have we ever thought of that? Do our drivers recognise that? Or are they just following the basic instruction we've given them? Because, like I say, the driver is tired, their eyesight's suffering, and we've gone and put the radio on, but the radio is sleepy itself. So we're not helping the situation. But we eventually ensure the driver gets to their destination. They've gone through all that and they get there. Oh, hang on. It's a bit embarrassing. Sorry, apologies. It's a bit rude, isn't it? You can't quite hear me, can you? Think so too. How rude mid-presentation. Wouldn't it be great if we could do that? If we could get a remote control out the cabin, just turn the noise down for these nighttime deliveries. Yeah. Because could you hear me during that? No? Would you be happy to wake up at that at 4 o'clock in the morning? Chances are you wouldn't. And I go back to the story I said earlier on about the role I was in with the drinks delivery company. Again, they were thinking about taking people out and delivering to public houses, maybe on housing estates, at all times of the day and night, at 24/7. Had any big consideration being given to the residents in there? What kind of impact would have that had on our business and our branding at that time? A big negative one, I should say. But I want to take you back to what the driver's been through as well. He's focusing a lot more, he's tired, he's had lots of time to think about the minutest issue that by the time he's got to his destination could be a massive problem. And then he gets out and somebody approaches him, he or she, somebody approaches them to complain about the noise. We've got a recipe for disaster if we don't raise the awareness of this with our drivers. Now, there are systems in place, but what we need to do is ensure we're going out and undertaking these risk assessments before the deliveries actually take place, to ensure we take away this potential problem for the drivers. And we also need to ensure that the drivers are aware of how their bodies and how their vision reacts at night. Because there are lots of benefits, and we do know it's a growing market, and that's not going to go away because the customers require that. We're all impatient nowadays. But these safety considerations we've talked about all centre around the driver. Do we actually communicate enough with our drivers, firstly to educate them on how their bodies work in different situations, and secondly, do we take on the information of the skills, knowledge and experience they have to ensure that we can make this planning for nighttime operations as smooth as possible? At the end of the day, been there myself. I'm not doing this without my own personal experience. We have the skills, knowledge and experience to be able to provide valuable information to you as employers. We'd much rather have that impact and work with you to ensure that we can get a smooth operation for yourselves and a better profit margin going forward. Because drivers are at the heart of our operations, they are a key part of it, aren't they? We couldn't run our businesses without them. So if we can take these things on board today, educating them about nighttime deliveries, and thinking about the risks that they have to undertake, then we can all keep them safe in this growth area of our sector. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed.